In this lesson, I'm going to be talking about rigid animation. And for that, I'm going to go back to my app, but I'm going to be creating a new project. This is not going to be based on anything that we have seen so far. So the first thing that I will do is just create a basic cylinder. Now, this cylinder you can move just by pressing W as usual, independently of anything. So I can just move it left, right, up, down, can rotate it, can scale it, and nothing is being affected by it. One thing that is going to be really important for what we're going to be doing next is to be able to manipulate my object in different spaces. What I mean with spaces is, as you can see down here, I have an axis. This is going to be telling me how my direction in X is going to be growing, the same as Y and Z, which is coming in this direction out of the screen. And now, as you can see, as I rotated this object, if I wanted to move it around, it is going to be moving on X in its particular axis. If I wanted to move it into the world coordinate system, I will just need to say, click on the world, and then it's going to be rotating in the world. So that is the actual advantage that I have here, taking an approach on the world or the object itself. I can do that with individual components. If I select one of these faces and say, move this in the component mode, I will be able to move it in that particular component, right? So that's it. And in here, I'm going to go back to my world mode. That's where I want to be working on for the rest of the video. But as you can see, it's actually the same coordinate system that this object is going to have. And if I create this other one, it is going to be in exactly the same system. Even if I rotate it, that is going to be moving it here. Another thing that is important is that the move, the rotate, and the scale can be separate spaces. So I have my moving world, my rotating world, and my object scale in object. So for now, I'm going to take all of these guys and I'm just going to make them into object mode. So first one, second one, and third one, all of them are going to be in object mode. So again, all of these objects, I can just move them independently in my world. See, I can just move them. Nothing is going to be affecting one or the other. I'm going to attach this object here. So in order to do that, I will select the object and I will hold Shift and click on the next one. Then I'm gonna press B. Notice that as soon as I do that, that is going to make the relationship between the two of them. If I move the sphere, I can put the sphere all the way here in the top, that is not going to be affecting the cylinder. But if I select the cylinder, that is going to be affecting the sphere because that is the new hierarchy that I created. That is going to be the relationship that I have in between the two of them. Imagine this is a car and this is a passenger. It is going to be exactly the same concept. If I move the car, the passenger is going to go for the right, but if I move the passenger can actually get out of the car. So I can manipulate that hierarchy, and this is going to be huge for whenever I want to do animations. This object can move completely independent on this one. So now the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of all of these things. I'm going to start making a mechanical arm. I'm going to make the shoulder first, and I'm going to actually be modeling it going upwards. So I'm going to take that in, and what I will do is I'm going to go to my front view, and in here I'm going to be selecting these faces, and I'm going to go to my edit mesh face extract, so I can make two objects out of it. I'm just gonna if I expand this is just going to make it larger, but I'm just undo that. I'm just gonna click here, and that is going to separate these into two different objects. I have my polysphere surface 1 and 2. So I'm going to be taking this one up, and I'm just going to be moving it into, let's say, this position. So I'm gonna hold X so that way I can snap onto my grid, and this is what I'm going to do here. Now the next one that I'm going to be doing is this cylinder, and this cylinder is way too small for what I want. So one thing that I will do is, first off, I'm going to select all of my faces on the object, and then I'm gonna hold Control and deselect the centers. You cannot see it from this view, but if I go to my perspective view, what's gonna happen is only the faces that were on the top were selected. So that was a quick way of selecting these. I will hit delete so I can make that into a hollow sphere, or cylinder, I should say. So I'm gonna select my vertex. I'm going to select all of these guys, and I'm going to hold X once again so I can snap them up to this part of the grid. I'm going to select these ones, I'm going to hold X, and I'm going to snap back down. So I'm going to select all of these objects, and now I have this lovely capsule. This one, I'm going to go to my mesh and I'm going to combine it, and I'm going to hold Alt Shift and D, or edit delete by type history. So I'm making a single object, and I'm going to call this capsule. When I make a duplicate of this capsule with Control D, what's going to happen is that is going to be renamed to capsule 2. So that is going to be convenient for me at this point. But what I don't want is my pivot point or the rotation to be coming out of this. So if I say rotate, notice that it's going to be rotating from the center. So that's not entirely what I want. I'm gonna undo that. What I want is for this to rotate down here. Another thing that I haven't done is merge the faces. That is not going to be a big deal for this project, but just to be safe, I'm just going to go to my edit mesh and I'm going to say merge. Now when I do that, if I select that face once again, it is going to be moving all of the faces alongside with it. So this is my very first capsule. I'm deleting the history, but once again, what I want to is to be able to rotate from somewhere around this area. So I'm going to hold D as in day, and I'm going to hold X at the same time. That is going to make the pivot point move and snap at the same time. So now my rotation point is going to be coming from down here. Okay, so that feels more natural for this rotation point. And what I will do is starting to create a new hierarchy. I'm going to take these and I'm going to Control D to duplicate it. I'm going to move it up. Again, I'm in object mode at this point, so I'm going to hold X and I'm going to move it up. I'm going to position it right here, so both of them are right on top of each other. This is not the way that we make animations nowadays, by the way, but it is going to help me create a really good hierarchy relationship, and it's going to show me how to align my objects fine. So it is a very good principle to have for when we move on to the next part, which is going to be rigid animation. So this is going to be my shoulder, and this is going to be the elbow right here. This is going to be my arm, and down here I'm going to create my hand. So for that, what I'm going to do is duplicate these once again, and I'm going to hold X and I'm going to move it up. This time around, what I want though is to scale it down. So I'm going to scale it. It doesn't really matter how much I scale it, but just to be more precise, let's do 0.25. So it's going to be a small finger coming on the top, and I'm going to edit and actually go to modify and then freeze my transformations. That's something I forgot to do on this one as well. So I'm going to go to modify, freeze transformations. This one didn't have any transformations because when I created it, it froze them for me. So I'm going to select this one once again, Control D, and I'm going to move it up. Now this time around, if I try to snap to the grid, it is not going to let me because they are not really connected like that. But I can hold B as in Victor, and that is going to let me move on this grid. I will select the wireframe view first so I can check that I'm in the right place. So holding V once again, I'm going to go down, and this is going to be forming this hemisphere as the one that I have down here. So that's good and everything. Let's make another finger. Control D, and I'm going to be holding V now, and I'm going to be moving it up. So those are going to be the three parts of my finger. Once that I have that, what I want is for these to be an actual finger that looks like a finger. So I'm going to select all of them, going to my modify and freeze my transformations just to be sure. This one I'm going to rename as shoulder. This one here is arm. This one here is going to be finger A underscore 01. This one is going to be finger V, actually A underscore 02. This one is going to be finger V A underscore 03. Sorry. Okay, so now another way that I can create my hierarchy, not only just selecting this and pressing P, so the second one is the one that's going to be the parent, I can middle click and drag from one onto the other, and that is going to create that hierarchy for me. So I'm going to have that. Now, what I want to do here is to make sure that I can actually rotate from the center in some way. And I'm going to rotate these, let's say 45 degrees, better in this direction. Okay, and I'm going to move it a little bit down here. So something like this is going to be fine. I'm gonna move it in this position. I can hard code the value. That doesn't really matter that much for the purpose of this exercise. Then I'm going to select the next piece and I'm going to rotate it like this, and I'm going to select the next piece and I'm going to rotate it like that. So that is going to be how my finger is located. I can select the three of them at the same time at this point and then curve them as much as I want. So something like this is fine. And I want to create another 4 fingers. Actually, another 3 fingers would be fine. So I'm going to select all of these guys first, and I will go and freeze the transformations on all of them. Probably I will need to break the hierarchy. So let's see, modify, freeze transforms. That's good. Go for the next one. Pressing G is going to repeat the last action. Good. And then good. So all of them are separated. Now my arm is also going to be parented to the shoulder. So middle click and drag. And my finger is going to be parented to the arm. So middle click and drag. Now I'm going to select this one and I'm going to go to my edit duplicate special options, and over here I'm just going to reset my settings to the default so we have the same ones, and I will create a copy of these objects. What I want to is do a radial copy, so going all the way around, and the axis of copying is going to be the y-axis. An easy way to figure that out is that if I select and go all the way around like this, it is going to show me the duplicates. Now as you can see, it is duplicating or rotating from this point because that is the pivot point of that object. So what I will do is in my finger A, I'm just going to say Control G, and that is going to create a copy, a group, an empty group, actually a group with all of the fingers, and I'm going to call this group probably hand. So I'm gonna right click and I'll double click on it and then say hand, and the hand is going to be rotating from down here. It's going to be fine for my rotation in this axis, but it's not going to be pretty well rotated. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to press D and X, and I'm going to snap that all the way here to the top. Probably I'm gonna hold D and V in this and just move it down, sorry, up. Let's see, that seems to be a good rotation to have for my fingers. So that hand doesn't have any history. This is great. Now I'm going to select that hand and I'm going to create copies for it. So again, the rotation is going to be over here. This is great. I'm going to say rotate. I need 3 copies, and I will say 90 degrees, and I will say make 3 copies. So apply, and that is going to create all of them at the same time. But as you can see, it's creating new hands. I'm going to have to move these into this object, but I want to show you how I can make more if I wanted to. So let's say that I wanted 8 fingers. I will go half of it, 45 degrees, and this is going to be 7. Apply and duplicate special, and then I have more fingers. Now the more fingers that you put on this exercise, the more complicated it's going to be. So I'm just gonna go back to my 90, and this is going to be 3 copies. Actually, well, I can do 3 fingers for this, or 2 fingers for this. 120 would be fine. Yeah, let's go with that. So 2 copies and do 120 degrees. So it's less work for me right now. Duplicate special. Yeah, I have my hand. So with that, what I'm going to do is take a look at the transforms. They are clean, but one thing that I need to do is before I move the objects, I need to rename them, because otherwise it's going to have clashing names. This is going to be finger B 02, finger B 03, and this is going to be finger Z 01, finger Z 02, finger C oops, finger C 03, and I just need to drag and drop finger C into hand and finger B into hand as well. So that's what I was trying to avoid. I want it here, not parented to hand. So now finger, there you go. So expanding all of them. By the way, if you hold shift and click on the plus sign, that is going to expand the whole view. Now I'm going to take hand 1 and 2 out of the picture because I don't really need them. And this is a great point to save my exercise. So from here I'm going to go to file, and then I'm going to save this scene as, and I will just choose my desktop. I don't need to set up a project for this one. It's a really simple exercise, and this is going to be rigid animation part 1. All right, so double checking that I don't have any history here. I have a transform. I will need to get rid of that transformation, so that is going to be my modify freeze transformations. Perfect. So here, and then this one is going to have transformations at once. So freeze transforms. Perfect. I don't want to have any transformations whatsoever coming out in this model, and I need to review that I don't have them before going in. The actual thickness of the arm and shoulder doesn't matter. What I'm going to be doing now is going to be doing a basic animation. I'm going to take out the grid or the floor, so I don't really need that. And this is what it looks like right now. So now the next step is creating this animation. So what I'm going to do is show you how to create keyframes. I'm going to select just the shoulder all the way down to the base, and I will say 1. That is my first frame, and I'm going to say rotate these, let's say 45 degrees. Then I will go to channels, key all keyable, and that is just going to create a new keyframe. This is going to be marked with the red in the side and the red bar over here. Now, if I go to, let's say 60, I'm gonna have 60 frames per second or 30 frames per second animations. Under 60, what I'm going to do is, I was in positive 45, I'm gonna go to negative 45, and I will click S once again. That is the shortcut for going to keys and key all keyable. Just be sure that you're in this window and not here, because that is going to actually override that with an S. So I have my animation going on like this, and I want this animation to be looping. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to change these values. This one just means where is the first frame. See, if I modify my view, if I want to see more frames, this value is not going to change. This is always going to be the very first frame of animation. This one here, on the other hand, is going to be the last one. So even though I can only see 120, my animation is lasting 200 of them. That is in theory, because if I just add another 0, now my animation has a limit of 200. This is just how large my timeline is going to be. This one here is what is going to be the end view. So if I wanted to see the whole thing, I need to do it in 2 steps, 1 to 120. And then moving my bar all the way here, this is going to be 84 to 200. My animation is really small though, so I only want to be able to see it from 1 to 60, and I can just put in 60 in here. That is going to go from the very to the last one. What is happening is making this bar shrink, so I can move it more easily, and I can spend more time on frames. See, I can do that manually. But what I want is for this frame, this whole animation, to last only 60 frames. So I'm gonna go here to that one. I'm gonna say short it out to 60. As soon as I do that, if I had that over here, that is just going to cut out also the size of the bar to 60. So now that I have that, I'm going to hit play. Chances are that the animation that you're seeing is not entirely looking like this. The reason is I have already changed my settings to play at 34 frames per second. I can do that to a different frame rate, but in the playback speed, by default, Maya is going to have a play every frame, which basically means that it's going to be tied into how powerful your processor is. At this point, you can see that I'm actually on frame 1, the next frame I'm in 50, the next one I'm in probably 36, the next one I'm going to be on 14. So it's actually skipping my animations in a really weird way. I don't want to play every frame. I want to be playing other, and I want to play at 30 frames per second. So that's the frame rate that I wanted to work with. You can change that to whatever it is. If you want to make the animations lower so you can see it better and debug it or whatever, that is up to you. But for now, I'm just going to keep it at 30 and I'm going to hit save. So with that, I'm going to hit play, and now my animation is pretty smooth, just going from one side to the other. But you can see that there's a snapping back from 60 all the way to 1. So once again, I'm going to make this larger. This one is going to be now at 120. I just wanted to show you how to shorten up the animation length. I'm going to go all the way here, and in this case, I'm going to select that and make it a 45, and I'm going to see channels, key, all keyable, and I want to see the whole animation range. So now I'm going to hit play, and it is going to be doing this. It is going to be somewhat hard to notice though, because it is 120 frames, but there is a hiccup in 120 and 1. It is actually repeating the same last animation frame from 120 to 1. So a really easy fix for that would be set up 119 as the limit, so it doesn't play 120, and then the whole animation should be smooth, just going from 1 all the way here. Okay, so let me try that in this view. And it's immediately going back. Do you see that? So one thing that it's also noticeable is that we have animation curves enabled, and by default Maya is going to apply principles of animation. In this case, we're going to be seeing the effect of an ease in and ease out. If I wanted to modify that, the only thing that I need to do is changing my Maya Classic into animation is going to give me access to this panel here. I'm gonna have the perspective, I'm gonna have the side view, which I can totally change, make it larger, make it smaller. If I press spacebar and left click, I can choose other views. So probably I wanna see it from the front, which is where my animation is taking place, and the perspective just in case I want to tweak something in. So when I hit play now, it is only going to be playing it in one at a time, either this one or this one. So that's okay. But now if I select my shoulder, you're going to start seeing the curves. These animation curves are going to let me tweak the speed in which things are happening or actual values. See over here, I have this animation at 45. So if I go back down here, you will see that this is where it's stopping. If I modify these to a higher value, so I can select that and move it up, that is going to be changing it over here as well. So if you don't want to, you don't have to work with those hard numbers here. You can just eyeball and make the animation look better onto your own description. But you can totally modify also the tangent of the curves. Do you see that? So what this thing is doing is saying, hey, you have to go up before you go down, and that is going to be changing the way the animation feels. See, it's going to be doing this thing. See that jump it did over here? I'm just going to move it down fast and then follow the curve. I don't want that. You can actually break the tangent. So it can be something like this, and this is going to be super sharp, and I can hit play. See that it's doing the same animation, but it's doing it at a different pace. That is the power of the curves. So I don't want to move it, but I can break it potentially, and I can do this animation. So I'm gonna hit play, and now it's doing this. The end result is going to be the same. The keyframes are going to be in the same place, but the way that you get there is going to be different. Another thing that I can do is if I want to make this look or feel more robotic, I can make the curves linear. So if I select my whole shoulder and I select these frames, this is where I want them to be, and I make them linear. I think the issue is I hit on, there you go, I broke the the tangent of the curve, and that's why it was doing that. So right now it's just, see how it kind of feels like it's bouncing all the way from one side to the other. So that's what you can do with animations. You can actually tweak them in a way that makes the most sense to you. You're not really stuck with this. If you want to change it back, you can do that. You can try to apply some other effects on the curves, make them a little bit more tangible. See, over here is going to do a smooth transition here in the fronts, but at the end it's going to feel like it's bouncing out of that. Alright, so to get more practice in here, what I would encourage you to do is make more animations in such a way that you create some extra curves. Over here I can still create some keyframes, maybe something like this. When it's doing the waving, when it gets to 60, you do something like different pace here. So it's going to do this, and then it's going to do the arm, and then it's going to repeat in a weird way. If you want to copy a frame, you can just right click and say copy, and then at the end I'm going to be pasting it, but I'm going to be pasting it in 120, not 119. The 119 trick was just to avoid that weird bump that I have, so I just need to say paste. Don't say paste connected, that's going to be a bit different result. One thing that I should be clear though is whenever you copy paste animation frames, you may have some issues with the interpolation, and you may need to play with the curve. It is going to be in some cases doing something weird. So that is it for this video. What I would like you to do is practice on how to get these animations going. A really cool exercise for these would be something like I'll have a basic sphere to one side, and then on frame 1, actually put it on the wrong side, but on frame 1 I grab the ball, and on frame 2 I leave the ball into the other side or something like that. So I grab it and I leave it, and then I put it back here or something. Parenting it, it's super simple at this point. Also, if I wanted to have it parented, I can just parent it to the hand, and then when I hit play, then the ball is going to be there. But most of the time what you want to do is really just have two separated balls. One of them is going to change visibilities, so that's something I can change as well. I'm gonna say this to 0, so when I grab the ball that is here, in order to have that ball just being in here, I can create a duplicate of it, so Control D. Oops. And then this one is going to be visibility on, so 1, and I will Shift P to unparent it, so it is changing places. See, when I grab it there on frame 1, when I grab it, my visibility of this one is going to be 0, and channels key selected, and then on this one my visibility is going to be 1, so channels key selected. So that way when I move the arm over here, I can have another ball in this position. I can say Control D once again, and I will take this guy out. This is not going to copy the keyframes, which is great. And then at this point I'm going to make that one visible, so this one is going to be channels key selected. Before that point I could have this one as hidden, so 0, channels key selected. Now the one that I have on my hand here is going to change to not visible, so channels key selected, and now it's gonna look something like this. I have that ball, I'm gonna deselect everything, have the ball, move it up, put it here, leave it there, and you see what's the idea, right? So that is a way of creating an animation of the hand grabbing the ball. There are some constraints that I can apply, but that's a far more advanced topic that I want to get into right now. But you can create some constraints based on frames and stuff. So for now, that is going to be it. This is the very principle of hierarchy and creating your very first rigid animation. Once again, this is not the way that we create animations nowadays. Most of the time, we're going to be working with a different system, like a skeletal system. And the reason is when you see it here, it's not that noticeable, but there is going to be some weird shading issue going on. So a super quick way of showing you this is if I select this thing and I apply a new material, let's say a blend. You open it over here. I want to make this blend, let's say a red, and then I'm going to select this one and I'm going to create another one, and this one is going to be assigned a favorite material blend, and this one is going to be a green. Do you see this weird shading that is happening in between? That has to do with the fact that at some point I'm going to have some C-fighting. C-fighting meaning that it's Maya has two objects that are exactly at the same length from the camera, and it doesn't know what is further away. So at that point it's just going to say, well, I'm doing my best here, just do that. So this is pretty bad. Sometimes it's mitigated with textures, but really most of the time this is really terrible. Low-end cell phones might benefit from this technique, especially if I'm really far away and the color is exactly the same. I wouldn't really notice that something is happening. As you saw when I had the gray, nothing seemed bad, but this is actually pretty bad nowadays, especially because I have occluding geometry, so it's inside of the other geometry. The next video is going to show you how to start creating what we know as rigid animation, which is a little bit more complex, but at the same time it uses the same principles that I had over here. So I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.